Good evening, everyone. It's quite a crowd, so thank you all for coming. Thank you for having me. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be staying this evening because I have work to do, unfortunately, tonight. But if I do manage to stay, you will certainly know who I am because I think I'm the most brightly coloured person in the room. I look like a walking candy shop. What I'm speaking about tonight is work that I've done at my former organisation, which is Nesta. I'm sure many people in the room have heard of Nesta. It's the UK's Innovation Foundation. I don't work there anymore because the program that I led on to do with supporting hyperlocal media and community journalism finished about a year ago. I now work at an organisation called Digital Catapult, which is all about supporting digital innovation in the UK economy in particular. And even though I work with small organisations, so startups and SMEs there, but it's not particularly sort of community focused. So I think on my profile for tonight it says I work at Digital Catapult. So it's just so you don't get confused as to who I am and that I moonlight with many things. Even though I do wear many hats still. But I guess the main thing that I sort of wanted to share tonight was some findings out of one particular research project that I did, and I guess how it doesn't just apply to hyperlocal publishers or community journalists, but because there's so much to do with community and getting community involved with those sort of local grassroots organisations. I think they're sort of things that anyone can learn. So whether you're someone who's publishing content online, whether you're a local business, whether you're a larger business who's trying to tap into a community and understand how to sort of, grow a profile in a community as well. So just a bit of a background about the program that I used to manage. So it was basically several aspects of it. So there was a lot of policy work involved. So I worked quite closely with the BBC and encouraged them to incorporate hyperlocal publishers into some of their work that's coming out on the back of the Charter Review. So they are now including hyperlocal publishers in some of their schemes around how they do local reporting, particularly with an emphasis on public service reporting, so going into local courts and things like that. Some of the program then was supporting hyperlocal publishers with grants. So Nesta is a grant funding organisation as much as lots of other work that they do. So that was around looking at and supporting local organisations to particularly innovate with digital technology. So it was sort of digital first, but not digital exclusive. And then the last part was doing lots of research, so trying to understand opportunities and challenges, looking at different parts of sort of the ecosystem as well to understand how, local organisations can grow, what the opportunities are, but also what some of the barriers are. And I'll mention some other particular pieces of research that I think will be applicable as well. But one particular piece was looking at revenue. So we sort of saw that there was a gap across Europe even in terms of where we knew where local publishers were getting their revenues from and what sort of revenue streams were most effective to them. So we did a big survey across, I think it was 5 different countries in Europe, including the UK, the Netherlands, Sweden, Belgium, and France. And it was looking at sort of some of the emerging trends that were coming up as well. And I think one of the really positive parts about this research was that it wasn't only positive because it was a collaboration across different organisations, including academic bodies, but it was also the fact that I didn't think it would have sort of the same length of, long tail in its effectiveness as what it has had. I sort of thought once you finish a piece of research that a few people read it and then they sort of move on to the next thing. But I think, I'm sort of constantly being asked to present about it. So I think it's really positive that, I still get people coming up and saying, oh, I read this research and I'm taking some really key tips from it and everything as well. So I was at the International Journalism Festival in Perugia in April talking about it as well. So I think it's great that there's still, you know, I think historically a few years ago when we started to do more and more work in sort of the hyperlocal landscape, that people thought, oh, it's just a buzzword, you know, it's a buzz thing, people are going to move on to something else. But I actually think it's gone completely the opposite, where I think especially in the world of journalism, and you know, as so many people sort of understand, like more and more in the news about fake news and who can we trust, and people don't trust traditional news groups as much as they used to, and we're getting information from all different sources, and all of us can be publishers. You know, I think there's actually even now more of a trend where people want to look locally, they want to look at their community and what they can do in their local community and how they can support things that are going on in their local community as well. And so I think there's sort of a shift where even though news, for instance, is changing, and the way that we access news and the way that news is distributed and produced is changing, but I think there's a sense within that change that there's something really positive that's coming out with people producing content about their local area, people telling positive stories as well. So it's not just about clickbait things, what celebrities are doing, but actually things that matter to people on a day-to-day basis. So I'll just go back. So this was called Hyperlocal Revenues in the UK and Europe. So we were trying to look at how organisations can be sustainable, because I think it's the case for any local organisation. So whether you're an arts group, whether you're a larger organisation trying to set up sort of a local network within an area, there's a real issue around not just being able to sustain content that you produce or sustain you know, local activities, but also for people to make a livelihood out of what they're doing to help local areas. So I guess just some of the key findings. So it's quite, I of course encourage everyone to go onto the Nesta website. You can type in Destination Local, which was the name of the program, and there's lots of different resources on there. And it's quite a large report, but it's very user-friendly. So it was designed for practitioners to use. So it's not an academic piece of work by any means, even though there were academic organisations involved. So I guess just some of the key findings there that I think are really applicable sort of across the board within local community and local business. So diversifying revenues, so it's not just about, okay, I'm going to use advertising in order to attract new customers or in order to get my income coming in, but actually diversifying revenue streams, so looking at where you can source income from lots of different places is like a really fundamental thing for local businesses, local publishers. Partnerships are really important, and I guess that's sort of a bit of a given in terms of the way that we operate with our neighbours even, you know, and I don't know if anyone's heard of what was called Street Life, but it's now called Nextdoor because it was taken over by Nextdoor, which is an American organisation. You know, that it's a really powerful tool that was created on the back of a digital team within a regional newspaper group, Archant. But I think even just, you know, being able to know who the people are around you, who you can connect with, who you can ask for help. You know, there's also buzzwords going around that's been around now for a few years called the sharing economy or the collaborative economy. So it's not just about, oh, I need to buy a service from someone, but how you can actually share skills, how you can share knowledge in exchange for something else. And I think particularly around you know, there's sort of, I guess, obstacles for small organizations and small businesses. If you're just a one-person band or a two-person band, it's really difficult in order to grow your business and grow the services that you're providing. So partnerships can really help to alleviate some of those barriers. The next thing around is, I guess, sort of native advertising. So even though there's, we found that advertising isn't sort of the be-all and end-all in order to sort of bring a revenue in, but native advertising and sponsored content. And again, that's not just something that sort of journalists are doing or publishers are doing, but local businesses can also play a role in that as well. And there's, I guess, you know, you can be subtle then with how you promote content or how you promote a business that is still suiting your values or your ethics as an organization, but without sort of making it blatantly obvious that it's paid for advertising. We also recognize that there's a resurgence in print. So even though in terms of traditional news organizations, you know, everyone sort of says that print is dead and we're reading fewer and fewer newspapers because we're accessing our content online or through social media. But we actually see that on a community level, and this is, you know, I guess you're looking at sort of almost like the local parish hall printing a newsletter every month or every quarter. There seems to be a real connection for us, and I think similar to the way that printed books are going as well. You know, we're starting to see a steady increase again in the way that people are using printed books, and that e-books or e-readers are actually in decline, because I think there's something human about having something in our hands, something that we connect with, especially when it's on more of a personal and community-based level. And crowdfunding is the next thing. So I think, you know, even though some people might get carried away that crowdfunding might be their be-all and end-all in terms of bringing in money for something or attracting new audiences and raising awareness of what you're doing in a local area, but I think crowdfunding really works for local organizations when there's a particular campaign. So if you're campaigning for, you know, a specific project or for a specific cause, or there's a limited time where you want some income to help to sort of prop up your service as well. I think it's a really powerful tool. And some people, you know, local businesses, local publishers are using it in really creative ways. And then the last point to make then is around you know, the reliance on volunteers, and you know, fundamentally that just doesn't exist to do with like community journalists. That's obviously exists with any sort of local campaign or local business, is how you attract volunteers. And there's I guess one of the barriers with using volunteers or sort of trying to bring volunteers on to sort of help you with a particular project or campaign is that they can be quite fluid. You know, I think we've all been there where we raise our hands to say, yes, I want to help this local cause. You turn up once or twice, and then the rest of your life, you know, you get carried away with doing other things, or you've got to work late, or you've got family commitments or something. But I think if, you know, you can use volunteers in a creative way, you can sort of get your message out there through volunteers, and you can sort of bring people on board. And I think that sort of intertwines with some of the other work that some of the other research that I did at Nesta. So there was another project that was an action research project where we got people, hyperlocal publishers, to be part of a research project. And it was particularly around how to use audience analytics tools and data analytics more effectively in order to get to know your audience. But sort of one of the key things that came out of that project, and which has continued in some of my freelance work that I do, is around the benefit of being transparent and bringing your customers or your audience on the journey with you. And I think there's a shift that we're seeing in sort of even the traditional journalism world as well, is that, you know, I think originally we're quite afraid to let people know, even on social media, you know, if we're starting to build audiences on social media or we're starting to build local communities, we have a bit of a barrier about being transparent and telling people why we're doing something, why we want them to come on a journey with us, and to sort of create that community around us. So I think it's sort of another kind of key takeaway is just to don't be afraid to take your customers or your audiences on a journey with you, explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, and sort of build up that trust with them. And I guess to finish, I don't know how long I've been speaking for. I could have been up here for 45 minutes. I'm sure I would have been flagged down by now. But I guess sort of then, you know, the main thing I think is, I saw something on Twitter today, I think, where it was saying something to do with, you know, we always talk about community and the importance of community, And this was, I think, particularly on the back of the London attacks on Saturday, but we never talk about how to build a community. So I guess that's kind of like the last thing that I will say is sort of, how can we have those conversations? What can we do either internally within an organization or sort of externally to sort of actually build and maintain and sort of make a community thrive around us? So the last thing I'll finish on is just my contact details. I'm finding it hard to read my own slides. They are my contact details, so my digital catapult contact details. I can tell you more about what I do there if anyone particularly wants to know. And then just some other useful links. So I'm happy to share this presentation as well afterwards. So other useful links about some of the other work that I've done at Nesta and also some of the other work that I'm doing now as well. So I hope that sort of gave a bit of an insight into one particular area of local anyway. Yeah, thank you very much.